podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network. Sports Social, now on the Sports Social Podcast Network.
FPL is back, and the Sports Social Podcast Network has everything you need to prepare your Game Week 1 squad. I'm Adam from the Above Average FPL podcast, and you can find the best Fantasy Premier League content at sport-social.co.uk, including ours, where we provide tips, strategy, and more importantly, great banter on our Off the Weekend podcast every Sunday evening. Just search Above Average FPL wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello and welcome to 1865, the Nottingham Forest Podcast. We've already brought you 60 episodes since Forest returned to the Premier League, and now to round off our coverage of the 22-23 season, we are bringing you a special two-parter where Stephen and Tom speak to a famous face from Forest's recent past.
Welcome to this 1865 podcast special with Stephen and Tom.
So today we're joined by a man who scored 208 goals in 611 games over a career that spanned over 23 years from non-league to Premier League, including 25 goals in 108 games for Forest from 2006 to 2008. It's Grant Holt. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm all right. Them stats kill me a little bit at Forest, don't they? You need to add on the line there, but 38 of them games are left wing. That's what you need to probably add in.
We'll come on to that in a bit. I mean, that season, we'll go on about a bit further, but that season after you joined, I think it was your first full season, I think it was 18 goals, so it was a decent return, wasn't it?
Yeah, as I said, it was one of the seasons, obviously. It's a bit of a strange one, obviously, because Nathan, Tyson had done his leg in the first game, so I hadn't even started in the first, and then he'd done his knee, obviously, which is a shame for Nathan, because obviously being a good lad and a great signing. But obviously took the opportunity for that season. I managed to get 18 goals and play the year, which was great. But with still the sense that I knew I wasn't going to play the next year. It's just
strange,
it was a weird one.
Yeah. But before I pass you over to Stephen to start with, it started your career, but can you remember who you made your debut against and who was the other debutant in your first game for Forest?
Debut was against Oldham?
Yep. And you scored?
I scored. I'm trying against Oldham.
Yeah, so who was made the debut for Forest same time as you?
What have been? I don't know, actually. One of the younger ones must have been. No, it can't be. I don't know. Lewis McGugan?
No, it was Julian Bennett.
Oh, was that Jules?
Yeah. So, I can't remember who played left back before him, but he had a really good game for Walsall against us, and we signed him on the back of that. Then you both made your debut in January 2006. So then you scored I think it was an header at the Bridgeford end. So good start for you.
Oh, there you go. There's a stats. I'm normally quite good at stats, actually.
Yeah.
So we'll take you back to the start of your career then. So you grew up in Carlisle. At school, were you destined to play football at a decent level, or was it just something that you enjoyed and then clubs started showing interest as you got a bit older?
We had a good group at school. We had a really good group of players all the way since when I was 11, 12 in primary. We had an unbelievable team. We ended up winning the Smiths Cliff Trophy, which I've spoke about when we were 12 at Wembley. And 4 of them lads went on to be professionals out of that group. Paul Reid, who was at Rangers and Northampton and places like that at Carlisle. Mark Boyd, who was at Newcastle, and Paul Vale and stuff like that. So we had a decent squad. And we were just fortunate. We just have good footballers all round, really. Even when we went to the secondary school, we had a good team. We were solid. And then predominantly between the 3 schools in Carlisle, probably most of the Carlisle United team was from them 3 teams. So Cumbria is one of the places you see with the players that came and gone. You look at Dean Henderson recently, Trafford the other day was just obviously saved the penalty for England. They're renowned for bringing players through and bringing groups and players through. So it's kind of Carlisle's one of the places. It's not really for West Cumbria to kind of work it in Maryport and all them. They're kind of more rugby. Carlisle is literally football. So to be honest, our sports program at school, if the teacher didn't put football on, then he wasn't getting much else out of his lesson. So we literally was pretty much, there was no sport of the term. The sport of the term was football. So we're always going to be half decent.
And I bet it's a decent catchment area, because I think apart from Barrow and Carlisle, there's no other clubs really, really close by, is there, to a certain point?
No, well, you say Barrow's still an hour and a half.
Yeah, so
there's no easy way to get to Barrow. So you got working. It kind of goes down. You got Carlisle working to Barrow, obviously the non-leagues, and then you got an hour to Newcastle, an hour to Scotland, and then an hour to Preston. So as a catchment, it's pretty good. But I think it's just for the fact that that's all we done. That's all we done was play football. Our dads played football. You went to the pub and watched that on the Sunday and Saturday, and you just got dragged around, and that was kind of, I think, why you get so many of them. What you tend to find at Carlisle, a lot of players who maybe haven't gone in the league have played at decent level, National League or Conference North for maybe 10, 15 years. So it's no coincidence that the local teams like Barrow in the local divisions and working are always doing well.
And it also mentions on your Wikipedia that you left Carlisle at 18 to join Workington, but it mentions that you left Carlisle on your own accord. What happened there? I
left Carlisle when I was 15. So Wikipedia's wrong for a change. I know it's...
Yeah, and you can edit it, can't you? So
it's very rare. No, I left Carlisle at 15. I just wasn't enjoying it. I just literally wasn't enjoying it. I was a right back slash centre half then.
Yeah.
Who used to go up for corners and score a lot of set pieces and different stuff. And then there was a guy, Eddie Jardine, is like, you're wasting your time playing at the back. You need to go and play up front and just have a real go. You're wasted. You can't keep bringing you up and scoring from set piece all the time. So, and we had a good team, and I started playing up front, and literally, I think it scored a hatful of goals at the under 16 level, and then we played Working Reds in a friendly. After we played an under 18 game, which I played against them, I scored a hat trick for our team, and they were at the time, we were just starting to chuck a little bit of money around and wanted to do a reserve team, and basically they took like 10 of us from Carlisle and said, look, we want to do a reserve team, will you come and play? And that was kind of it, really. Kind of went and joined them, and then I was playing the reserves, and then I was playing like a wing back slash role, and then I started playing up front. And basically, what happened was I played up front and I 2-foot tackled someone because he kicked me, and I got a red card. And obviously, when the local rules of the Cumbrian FA, I ended up missing like 6 weeks of football.
Wow!
Because the way they'd done like the thing. And then, unbelievably, I came back, and as a punishment, the manager said, right, you're going to play right wing back because we've already got 2 forwards doing well. So I played right wing back in this game, and I used to play, obviously, when I was a kid, and it was quite good for me because I could get up and down and run. Obviously, you'll see, with the Forest days, you've seen it, how dynamic I was as a winger. And that was it. And unbelievably, on the week, so I played the wing back on the Saturday, and then the first team, we had to go to the game on the afternoon. We watched the game, and the right back got injured for the first team. Then the sub came on, which was right back. He got injured and had to go off. And then there was only the next guy came on and went and played right back. So all of a sudden we had a game on the Tuesday for working, and obviously they didn't have a right back. So I had to go on the bench as a recovering right back. And then when I was on the bench, the centre forward got injured after 15 minutes, so he came off. And then Paul Stewart, remember Paul Stewart, the centre forward, Spurs and stuff?
Yeah. I think he scored against us in the FA Cup final in '91.
Yeah.
To Liverpool, I think.
Yeah, I didn't want to mention his name because I knew that might be the case, but
we're over it now.
he was the big money man at work at the time, and he was playing ahead of us. So, and then he came off injured. So, luckily for me, I went on as a centre forward, played the game, scored in the game, we ended up winning. And then the next week after, we didn't have any centre forwards, ended up playing up front. So I think I ended up scoring like 13 goals in whatever, 15 games or whatever it was. We got to the last game of the season, and the manager decided to leave me out because Paul Stewart came back. So, and we had to win the game to win the league against. They were top, we were second. We had to beat them to win the game, and he left me out. I think Paul Stewart lasted about 20 minutes, and I went on and got the winner, and we ended up getting promoted. So. And then that was that. After that, I got sold to Halifax for 10 grand after that.
Yeah. So, at Workington then? What level are they at now? Are they close to getting into the Football League, or they're quite far away from it?
Workington, I've just got promoted now, so I believe they're in step 3 now, step 4.
All right, okay.
So when I was there, it was Northwest Trains League, which is probably like Unibond, less than Unibond, whatever that was. There was Unibond Premier, and it was like the 2 below that. We went up to Unibond Premier South or whatever it was. South. Unibond Premier North, I think we went up to. So the standard wasn't really great, but I just went and I was playing men's football. I was playing football at 15 with Sunday mornings with men. Playing against 40, 50-year-old men on a Sunday morning, getting kick lumps out of. And it was the best thing I ever done, because I just went and played and enjoyed it. And I got rough and ready, and I got kicked all over the place, and it just toughened me up. So I still, without a shadow of doubt, was the best thing I ever done, leave Carlisle. The best thing. I still believe now that too many people sit in the academy too long that don't enjoy it and shouldn't be there. Some people love environments like that, some don't. And I think the younger ones get fixated being in a building, and some of them, it's not the pathway. They're similar to some people don't like university, some people don't like college. You just know. And I think football's pretty similar, but everyone's so scared to leave them academies to go and actually play football that they never think they're going to get back in, which is wrong.
Yeah, I think the older pros usually say learn your trade and everything, and I still think that's apparent like now kind of thing. You got to learn your trade and everything, then it's going to just put you in good stead for like years to come. But if you're just going to sit at the academy and not getting that, then it's not going to be beneficial for you, is it?
I think it's one of them. I think it's like anything. I think some it suits, some it doesn't. And I think it's just having that braveness to actually go and do it. I think, like I said, we'll get on to probably Shrewsbury later on, but most of the times when I left, I decided to leave because I wanted to leave. And I knew it was the time for me to leave and go. But I was quite happy to take a backward step to back yourself to go forward. So that's what you got to do, really.
Yeah, we got a lad at the moment, Ryan Yates, and he was on loan at Barrow once upon a time, and I think he was at Scunthorpe and Notts County, and he learned his trade. And I think it's his own admission, he's not going to be the greatest player, but he'll always put that 110% effort in. And we never thought he'd be a decent in the Premier League, and he's held his own in there, and he's been really good. So it just goes to show you, if you do go down the loan journey of getting your trade underneath you, then it's going to benefit you in the years to come, isn't it?
Yeah, just getting the right one. You just got to make sure it's the right one. That's the hardest thing, and that's why obviously the people in the building are paid to make them choices. But you've got to sometimes make your own. I think sometimes decisions get taken out of their own hands, and they need to make their own decisions because inevitably they'll be the one who dictates their journey in 5-10 years' time. So I think they need to leave it to them a little bit.
I think players like you are an example where dropping down doesn't mean that you're on a decline. It's the opposite. You go down to come back up again. And they say a few times in your career, you ended up doing that and eventually got to the Premier League. And it just shows you probably going outside your comfort zone a bit as well and just getting that men's football under your belt. I
think it's easy to sit. It's sometimes easy to sit, and comfortable is quite nice. Do you know what I mean? And you can sit and you know where you are. And like I said, I could have stayed at Forest. I'd done another year at Forest. I just gone to the Championship. I hadn't been there for a long time with Sheffield Wednesday, and I thought, well, I've got a chance to go to Shrewsbury. I could have easily, wages have gone up, could have sat there Forest for another year and gladly sat there. And then probably someone would have taken me the year after anyway, because they'd thought, well, remember when he scored 18 goals in League One, and I'd have probably got a few appearances in the Championship anyway. So, but I just knew it wasn't right. Do you know what I mean? Did I, well, we'll get onto it, but did I want to leave the club? Absolutely not. It's a fantastic club and it's massive. Do you know what I mean? I knew where they could eventually go, but sometimes you've got to do what's right for you, really. Yeah. When you were at Halifax, you had a loan spell in Australia with a team called Sorrento, and then 2001 you go to Singapore for a move to Sengkang Marine. Now, I can imagine that being some experience, going to that side of the world and playing football. Was it a hard move for you at such a young age, or was it something you embraced and it really helped you along the way? I think it helped me in terms of when I went to I'd actually just left Halifax when I went to Australia. So it was kind of on the cards I was going to go, and I spoke to the assistant manager just gone there, and obviously my dad had not long passed away, and I just kind of knew that I needed something new to get me sparked again. I hadn't played at Halifax. New manager came in, I wasn't part of it. I'd gone back to Barrow, which was great, and they let me play a few games at the end of the season. It was kind of like, look, I'm going to go and try something, and they're like, yeah, get used to the way I do. I had a great coach, Kenny Lowe, who's now at Perth Glory, and he was like, go and try it, see if you like it, and then you're a long time in England, you can always come back, we'll give you a contract and blah, blah, there's your contract. If you want to come back whenever, just come back and I'll give you X amount of money. So I went with the grace of him to kind of go. And I went out there for a month, and the football was all right. It wasn't the standard Perth Glory. Everyone was telling me, come and play and do this, do that, and you'll get signed off the league. And I probably would have in the end. I think I played 10 games over a 4-week period or whatever it was, 8 games or something. I'd scored about 6 or 7 goals. So I'd have probably got signed by Perth Glory if I'd stayed there for the whole season. But I just knew it wasn't for me, and I needed to come back, and I wanted to be in England. I wanted to be around my mum and everyone like that, and just kind of transition after that year and my dad and make sure everyone was all right. So probably going back to Barrow was probably the best thing for me, being in Carlisle again. And I was very lucky. I had a guy called Billy Barr, who was the youth team coach at Carlisle at the time, who I knew for quite a long time, and obviously he knew my dad and everything. I knew quite a few people in Carlisle, so I was very fortunate that they let me go in and train with them. So what I did is I went and trained with the younger lads, and I was in between. I trained with the younger ones / if the reserves had some training sessions and stuff. So it was good. It was kind of a year off of enjoyment. And then off the back of that, the guy from Australia had gone out to Singapore and then rang me and said, look, do you want to come out for the summer? But unbeknownst to me, what kind of happened between me going into Carlisle was like fun. Next minute, they got taken over. The new manager came in, Roddy Collins, and they were doing this big overhaul. And they were like, oh, do you fancy playing a couple of reserve games for Carlisle? And I was like, well, yeah, if you're sure, kind of thing. I ended up playing a few reserve games as the old A trialist behind the scenes. And I think I scored about 4 or 5 goals in these like reserve games. But obviously they couldn't tell anyone. Everyone in Carlisle knew it was, but they couldn't tell. No one knew it was me, kind of thing. So I couldn't tell everyone I scored all these goals. And then they kind of offered me a contract and said, look, here's your contract, but we can't give you it because of we're in liquidation at the moment. We can't sign you in this and the other. I said, well, I've got this chance to go to Singapore for 3 months. So they're like, well, I'll tell you what, you go to Singapore, go and keep fit, and then we'll ring you when ready. So I went to Singapore, young kid, kind of just fresh face, but I always knew I had that security of Carlisle and Barrow, so it was literally like a free hit for me. Mm-hmm. But it was the best thing I'd done, because I went out there I ended up being nearly 3.5, 4 months. And it was, as you'd expect, it was absolutely roasting. As soon as you got a shower, you came back in the dressing room, you're sweating again. It was like every time you run, you just constantly running. It was harder and harder and harder. And it was probably the greatest pre-season I've ever had. We ended up getting about 3 weeks down the line. It was probably the slimmest I've ever been, fittest I've ever been. And then it was about 3.5 months, Carlisle rang me up and said, oh, can you get the plane back? We're ready to sign you now. So I was like, oh, God, I'm quite enjoying it in Singapore. But obviously, it's like, I'd literally just been offered a new contract by another team and said, I'll give you 2 years to stay in Singapore. And I was like, oh, my God, they offered me more money than what Carlisle offered me. But I was like, how could I've always wanted to play for Carlisle. I did, but didn't. I played in a couple of trial games, but I never played for them. And it was that thing, I couldn't turn it down. Literally flew back the next day and said, really sorry, I need to go. But the manager already knew I had the deal, came back to Carlisle. Was in the Carlisle for about 3 weeks, played against Celtic, scored, played against Newcastle, scored. And then in the end, I was like, went into the manager, like, where's this contract? He went, oh, I'm really sorry, I can't sign you anymore. They've got no money. I was like, you're killing me, aren't you?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, it's just part and part of football. I was like, yeah, but I've just been offered like 2 years, this, that, and the other. And luckily for me, I went back to Barrow, and like we're literally within the space of 2 months, people ring me, and I went back to Kenny. It was funny because I went back to Barrow, and you talked about like getting out and doing stuff. And I went back to Barrow, and literally I said to Kenny Lowe, I kept getting phone calls to go like on trials, to go here on trial and there on trial. And I was like, nah. I said, I'm not doing it anymore. I've had enough. I said, I'm sick of it. I'm bored of it now. I said, I've done it. I've done all the hard work. I've done all the graft, and for the first time, I'd probably give up for the fact of being a pro, because I was like, I just couldn't be arsed with it anymore. I was like, I'd then transitioned into, my mate had got a job and said, do you want a job? So I was like, that's fine. I was working in a factory. I was earning decent money in the factory, like the easiest job ever in a storeman. And then I was getting good money at Barrow. And I said, I still want to go on trial.
Because Barrow, you had a decent record there. Was it 31 goals in 59 games? Then was it Sheffield Wednesday came knocking after that?
Yeah, Sheffield, yeah. And that's what I said. It was kind of, I got to the point where I didn't want to go on trials. And then literally, I remember getting pulled into the Kenny Lowe's office. And Kenny went, look, you're not playing tonight. And I was like, what are you on about? You leaving me out? And he's like, no, you've got a trial tomorrow. And I was like, no, I'm not going to trials. I've told you. I'm expecting the usual ones. I've been coming up in kind of a few League Twos and national leagues and this, that, and the other. And I had a few of them ringing. I was like, I don't want to go to National League. I'm quite happy where what I'm doing and stuff. And he went, no, you're definitely going to Sheffield Wednesday. And I was like, and he went, and it's tomorrow. And I was like, what? I was like, I can't go tomorrow. I've got like back shift. He said, no, we've already spoke to someone and you've got the day off and and this, that, and the other. So they literally rang up like got my boss's number, told him I won't be in tomorrow. I'm going to Sheffield Wednesday and literally finished the game up.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest Podcast.
My mum was in the crowd and my mum's quite chirpy. So when I went to the stand, she came to the game because she used to come and watch all my Barry games. So I had to walk up to it, but she knew I wasn't injured. So when I walked up the stand, obviously I wasn't allowed to tell anyone why I wasn't playing. And all she kept on doing was getting louder and why are you not playing? What's going on? I was like, yeah, it's fine. I said, we'll have a chat at half time. She's like, no, but this is ridiculous. I've drove 1.5 hours, blah, blah, blah. I was like, we'll have a chat in the car. Literally, I was like trying to calm her down. She's getting louder and louder. I'm thinking, please just shut up. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was it. Went back and then went for the trial the next day. And we've done all right. I think we won 3-0 or something. I didn't score, but I played pretty well. But like to go from where I was to walk out in the middle of Hillsborough, I'd had all that thing of like, I don't want to do it anymore. And you walk out in the middle of Hillsborough, even when it's dead, you're looking thinking, like, if I'm going to come in, it'll be forged, it's ridiculous.
Because it's still, I mean, it's an oldie worldy stadium, but when you walk there and obviously you've got a lot of history with it, you turn around and you see the big cop and everything, and obviously the history at the other end, what happened in '89 and everything. It is a massive football club.
The only time I've been there before was when I was at Halifax. We'd gone there for a training. We played them in a pre-season game.
Yeah,
and like early doors, and they had like I think like DeCanio and all them boys were like still there at that time. Like proper training ground. I was like, Jesus, this is unbelievable. So to actually go in and be in there, it was just surreal, really. Like, and then I'd had another. I think I had another trial. Then we had another trial game that was scheduled for the following Tuesday against Newcastle up in. So it was perfect for me around the corner. They rang me up the day before and said, we don't want you to go to that game. I want you to go to this game on Friday against Birmingham because that's a better game. We're only sending kids up on Tuesday. And I literally turned around and went, no. I said, I've took the day off work. It's already cost me money to be out the trial. It's going to cost me money over. I can't be going down there on the Friday and this, that, and the other. And literally, I was like, I have a play against Newcastle. I'm not coming back. Yeah.
Because for Sheffield Wednesday at that time, they had a bit of a fall from grace because only like 3 or 4 years previously they were in the Premier League. Now they went into like Division 2, which is League 1 now. But who was the manager at Sheffield Wednesday at the time and what players were there? Chris
Turner was the manager. At the time, we still had something. Like I said, we still like Lee Bromby, Alan Quinn, Del Geary, a lot of lads who were at Sheffield United. You had Lloyd Owusu, Chef Gucci. Who else was there? Oh, there was loads of the old boys. Mark Robbins that came in. There was a few of the older boys still. Danny Maddox and different people. There's still Pressman was still there. We had a good squad. There just obviously it was a time when ITV were there as well, so they started putting a bit of money in and wages and different stuff. So we had some good players. But as I said, it was probably, do you know something? It was probably pretty similar to kind of when I went into Forest, where it was like big club in League One, massive expectations, need to get out, been there too long, need to do it quickly, and kind of pretty similar things. So, and to be fair, when I got in there, I had no ambitions of playing whatsoever. Like towards the end of the season. And then obviously I did manage to score in my full debut and then give the penalty away the same day. And Bobby Zamora scored and we both got relegated the same day. So it was kind of a massive high, massive low at the same time. So.
Yeah. So Chris Turner's the guy who was, what was his name? John Sinnott's assistant at Leyton Orient when they had that documentary. Yeah. So what was he like as a manager then? Was it because he comes across as a bit of
your dinner as well? And is that when he was
that's the one.
Yeah.
So
he was quiet and calm, Chris. Colin Westwood was a little bit fiery, but Chris was quiet and calm. So he was good. I said he was just the problem was he just had all that weight of expectation. Yeah, so it was a weight of expectation by the fans, and look, you know what it's like. It's like that every year when you get in a big club and the pressure's on you. It's like as a fan, you can every year everyone says the same. I don't mind as long as we're in the right direction, but everyone lies. They want to get promoted. They want to win the league by 100 odd points, and they want to see as many goals as you possibly get, no matter what you're in.
Yeah, it's definitely a sink or swim, isn't it? When you're in that situation, kind of you got your, like you said, the pressure and everything of getting a club like Sheffield Wednesday out of that division and trying to get them up the league, and one day they might get to the Premier League, bit like us really, because we had 23 years out of it, and you're thinking, will that day ever come? And thankfully it did a couple of years ago. So
I think when you're a team at a certain profile, that league can be horrible as well. I don't know if you as players feel it as well, that pressure and the expectation when unfancy teams come and play you off the park. You know, no disrespect to Colchester or Scunthorpe. You know, it's teams like that come along and it's almost cup finals for them every time they're at Hillsborough or the City Ground or Carrow Road as it was for Norwich.
Yeah, it's the same thing though. It's how you manage it and what group you've got. But the hardest thing is that look, your crowd's going to be full every week. Not that even when we're at Sheffield Wednesday or Forest, we're turning up and filling 3,000 away fans. You know what I mean? No one's doing that. And in League One, it's the same with Norwich. When Norwich used to go, they used to fill it. And so it always feels like a home game. It always feels like that pressure and the pressure mounts and stuff. Sometimes it goes one or two ways. Like sometimes you've got a group of players that there's too many players and there's too many, no one knows who's playing. There's too big of a squad because they've got a big budget. So it's just about managing. If you look at like the Forest team that went up last time in the Premier League, predominantly we'd have probably said out of the whole squad, you could have probably named who was going to be the starting 11 mostly all season, bar 2 or 3.
Yeah.
And I think what the trouble we had at Sheffield Wednesday was there was far too many players. And the same at Forest, really. There was far too many players when I was at Forest who were good players. Do you know what I mean? If you just look at the forwards, we had Scott Dobie sitting there who's coming back from injury. You had me, you had Junior Gogu coming, you had Nathan Tyson. Do you know what I mean? Just to name a few. You had Jack Lester. It's like, look at the quality you've got. It's like, who do you play with? How do you keep that happy? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's very hard, isn't it?
Yeah. So after Sheffield Wednesday, you moved to Rochdale, and your strike partner is Ricky Lambert, and he's a player similar to yourself, worked the way up from the lower leagues because it was League Two at this point, and your career's sort of followed a similar trajectory, really, where you end up in the Premier League and your regular scorers in the top flight. What was it like playing alongside Ricky at Rochdale?
Ricky was a centre midfielder then, so he used to play centre mid. He was never a forward. So what we basically done is we kind of, when Ricky came in, we had me, myself, and Paul Tate, and Ricky kind of came in more as like a number 10 kind of player. And it kind of morphed into me and him being up front. I used to do all the running channels, and he do all the technical stuff and hold up play. And everything you see with him now is what he learned it to be. But I think for him playing up front as well, it would help having someone like me, similar size and work rate and good. And we had a good group at Rochdale with a really good. We're very fortunate. We had probably 6 or 7 of probably the best old school pros we've ever had in terms of football wise, who just loved football, wanted it done the right way. We're coming to the end of their career, but weren't there just to keep picking the money up. They still wanted to win. I think we had a really good group of like young kids who just wanted to go and play and work hard and run around. And that mix was perfect for what Rochdale needed at the time. And obviously with me selling Ricky, obviously the first year I got a bucket load, and Ricky came in, and I think Ricky ended up, when I left to go to Forest, Ricky ended up being top goal scorer in the league as well, so it showed how many goals we had that year. The only thing I would say, it was disappointing that we never really got a chance to see it out, because I think if I'd stayed at Forest and Ricky had stayed, I think if I hadn't gone to Forest and had stayed at Rochdale, I think we'd have a right go of potentially getting promoted, I think, with Rochdale. But as I said, I went Forest, and then he went to Bristol Rovers at the end of that year.
Yeah, you talk about your scoring record, 42 in 88 for Rochdale, and that's before you joined Forest. But before you moved to Forest, were there other clubs looking at you, and were you aware of any interest from higher up?
Yeah, I think there was plenty sniffing around. There was plenty of people that were asking questions and seeing Swansea had bid for me 3 times in that season. At the end of the season, from the first season, Swansea had tried to sign me 3 times. There's a few other ones that put little cheeky bids in. I think Scunthorpe had done a bid as well. There's a couple in there that were having a go. I always remember when I got the call with Forest. My wife was getting her hair done in Rochdale. I always remember it. I was literally like sat in the hairdresser. She was getting her hair done. I was sat there, and my phone would not stop going off. And literally, it was like one of the directors or something at Rochdale said, "Oh, because I had the clause in there of how much someone had to get to." And I said to the manager, Steve Parker, at the time, "I'm not going to ring you and ask to get out of the football club. So until that number's met, don't bother ringing me, and that's fine. I'll just get on with what I need to do." And then I remember sitting in the hairdresser, and the guy rang me and said, "Yeah, Nottingham Forest came in for give you the money." And he's like, "What do you think?" I said, "Yeah, no problem. I'll head down there tomorrow." It literally was there's no hesitation. You know what you're getting with Forest. I said,
yeah.
I'm at an era where I was a kid and I watched them in the Premier League every single year, and Pierce and Des Walker was one of my favourites as well. So I'd watched them for years, and you don't need to think twice about getting a move to Nottingham Forest. I didn't care who the manager was. I didn't care who they had in the building. I didn't care where they were going. It was somewhere. As soon as you heard the name, it was definitely on my radar to go.
So you just mentioned about manager and everything. So you joined Forest in 2006, where Gary Megson signed you. As fans, it was a absolute mismatch because he used to be at Forest in the 80s. Cloughy bought him, but never played him, and said he couldn't trap a bag of cement. So did you feel there was like, when Megson was there was some resentment from him that is at the club kind of it? Because we just never got that feeling from him. I know it's like chalk and cheese now with us and Steve Cooper of that like relationship, but we never got it with Megson. So how did you actually find him when you arrived at Forest in 2006?
I actually found him all right in terms of what he was as a guy and stuff. I still see him, and I've seen him around and stuff, and he was okay. I think the weirdest thing with me was when we walked in the door. Obviously, I know Scott Dobie because he was obviously Carlisle, and I've been at Carlisle when he was there, and I was going to training, so I knew Scott quite well. I remember walking in. I kind of got in the morning. I was walking down the office, and I was like, I'd looked at like the list of players of who was there, and obviously Neil Harris and Gary Holt and all these players and blah blah. I remember walking in the dressing room for the first time. When I go to a new club, I always go early. Because I want to be in there first. I don't want to be waiting for walking in when everyone's in there. I kind of get in. I want to see where things are, and I kind of always done it. So I got in early and everyone was in, but everyone kept on like coming in and, "Hi, are you all right, Wes?" and Morgan and different people and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, Ian Brecken and people like that. Met Brex, obviously, because he was captain at the time. And I just said to Scott Dobie came in, he was on the bed at the time because he was injured. I said to him, "Where's everyone else?" He went, "Oh, they're in the dressing room down the end of the hall." And I was like, "Oh, right, okay." I went, "Is it like that?" Is he went, yeah. He said, "There's about 12 of them down there that just come in and go down the bottom of the hall." And I was like, I've seen it before in football clubs, but I hadn't seen it at that level. It just felt really weird. You had another separate like kind of group down there. And I went in and met Meg, and he's like, "Look, we're trying to get some people out, but you're part of my plans. I want you to play, and this, that, and the other, and this is where you're going to play." And yeah, it was good as gold, and everything we kind of wanted to everything you want to hear as a player going in, you wanted to hear. I heard. The problem we had was, what I didn't realise in the background was half the players didn't want to play for him, the other half were in the other dressing room, and he couldn't get any continuity. And all these new lads that came in trying to bring a bit of positivity when you couldn't get through that negative. And that was it. And he had the same trouble. Too big of a squad, too many players, too much money chucked at it. And it culminated in making bad decisions in terms of, I think, sometimes playing people in positions where they might not have played, someone else should play, but it alienated some of that squad where he was never going to play them anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, some players in that squad at the time was with Alan Rodgers being there and David Johnson, and there was like affinity with the fans and everything of what they'd done before. Then Megson comes in, and it was, like I mentioned, the relationship wasn't there. So as fans, we probably like sided with like, why isn't David Johnson playing in Alan Rodgers rather than going with the managers? And it was like that for like, because we got relegated under Megson, but we had Kinnear before, you see, and it was kind of like a lot of players from different managers at that time. And you, like you say, you can't get that continuity, can you, when you're trying to create something in terms of trying to get out of League One?
No, and that's it. And when you're not winning as well, it doesn't help, does it? Because, like I said, we talk about the expectation, we talk about the money that gets spent, and everyone mentions it. So everyone mentions that Tice came in for 670 grand. I think it was 675 or something. I came in for 300 grand. Jules was obviously signed, and other people that came in the building, Sammy Kling and people like that. So it was kind of like everyone knew where we should be, and it just wasn't working. And I said it culminated in when obviously we played Oldham, we got absolutely spanked, and things got sent at half time. He took Jack Lester off. That was a big hoo-ha. He made Nicky Eden travel all the way to the game for no reason and then put him in the stand. It was just like, he was mucking about with big characters, and you can't do that, especially not when you're under pressure, and that's kind of what it felt. But as I said, for me personally, I never had a problem with him. I got on with him well. He had a few pops at me in games, and I think some of the stuff he said in games was not constructive, but I'm a big boy and take the chin and get on with it. But in terms of, I don't think he had the group. I think from the moment I went in, you could kind of tell that actually the group weren't having the staff, and then I kind of knew where I was going to go, I think.
Yeah. Talking about the staff, did you come across these, I think it was from the RAF or something like that, Adi Stavel, the fitness guy? So yeah. I think he loved himself too, according to other players who have mentioned AD in the past.
I think it's one of them. You can name it. I can probably tell you which players have said it and which players didn't. I always found him okay. I found him fine. Yeah. He was young, he was naive, and he was keen. That's what he wanted. And he wanted to do what he wanted to do, and he wanted to do it his way. Sometimes you look in football, and some people don't like that. I think if you look at him now for what he was trying to do, in terms of, you look at a sports scientist now of what they'll do in their sessions, he's probably not far off what he was trying to do and replicate in the building. But he was probably, the way he was trying to put it across wasn't in the correct manner, if that makes sense.
Yeah, a few years before Mexon, we had David Platt, and a lot of players said he was ahead of his time. So if it was like in this day and age, he would have got on fine, because he went to Italy and he was trying like all these new ideas. Yeah. He didn't wash on like the older school player kind of thing. And ultimately he didn't last long. So I think it's like you sometimes can do the right thing at the wrong time, can't you?
Yeah, and I think even when Colin came in, we're lucky we got Ryland Morgan, who came in, and he was like top draw, sports scientist as well, and fitness coach. He was brilliant. Obviously went on to Liverpool and Wales and stuff like that, and he was top draw with Colin and pre-season stuff. And I think the boys had never been as fit under him, to be fair, to the point where probably we actually were too fit. And then when it came to the final stages of in the playoffs and stuff, everyone was kind of falling apart because they played that many minutes and that much meters and that many miles. So. But look, it's football. You don't get on with every member of staff. There's probably staff that don't like me and probably got bad opinions of me or whatever it is, but that's just football. But you can't get on with everyone.
Megson left the club a couple of weeks after you joined. What was it like when Charlie McParland and Frank Barlow took over? Was it like somebody flicking the switch and it was all great and everyone getting on again? Because on the pitch, results were transformed and the team were flying, playing some great stuff.
The dressing was busy, put it that way. We had a few more in there, but I think by the time we'd done that, we had to split the squads anyway because it was that big. No, I loved it with Frank. I loved the two of them being in there. They just came in and have a bit of a freshness to kind of let us get on with things and just go and play. I'd have been happily, if they'd have took the job for the full time, I'd have been pretty happy with it, to be honest. I thought they were a really good partnership, bit of all, bit of new, bit of screaming, bit of shouting. I think it was unfortunate. I think it was maybe Hartlepool away we got beat, where we really put 2-0 and that kind of scuppered our chances of going in. I think if we'd won that game, I think we'd have gone on and got the playoffs, and I think we'd have got promoted. But unfortunately, I think it was Hartlepool away. It was just one game too far. I remember I think Michael Nelson scored a overhead kick or something in it, like a side volley from nowhere, I think it was, to make them 2-0. But no, I loved it. I thought they were really good. I thought they were really positive. Moog got lifted, obviously, because everyone was kind of back in the door. You had a big squad to pick from, and there was none of this, like, you knew they were down there. I've never been like that anywhere. I think player-wise, you kind of get on with everyone when you see them, but it was kind of the manager had made the split, and I think to bring everyone back together was a true move.
Just going back to the last bit on Megson, Nicky, I'm quoting him now, but Nicky Eden mentioned on Under the Cosh that there was some players willing to potentially throw a game to get Megson out the door. Is that true or false? Because it's kind of we kind of heard it at the time, but we thought it might be like that just down the pub chat and Chinese whispers. But were players willing, well, without naming names, were players willing to do that just to get them out the door because of the atmosphere with Mixon and other players in the squad?
I would hope not. I would hope that's not what I've not heard that. So I would hope that wouldn't have been the case. But obviously, I know a lot of the boys were very happy when he got sacked.
Yeah.
Which is their prerogative, but I don't think anyone would do that in that group of players who we had.
Yeah,
especially the ones who I know well. I don't think could you see James Perch or someone chucking a game of football for West Morgan? Do you know what I mean? I don't think that's gonna.
No.
It's not in their nature to do that. I said I think a lot of people were very, very pleased that he lost the games and stuff, but as I said, I don't think it made a difference. I think it was the writing on the wall.
Yeah, whether it was one of those tongue-in-cheek conversations, and it's like someone just took it as
I wouldn't have thought someone.
Exactly. Yeah,
I wouldn't have thought someone might have said it in the dressing room. If we could just lose this weekend, that weekend he'd be gone. I wouldn't have thought someone had said it, but I said it wasn't said in my earshot because that's one thing. It definitely is not in my nature. That's not what I'm there to do. I'm there to win football matches for the people that come in the ground and pay the money. So you don't do that.
Thanks to Stephen, Tom, and of course to Grant Holt. Part 2 of the interview will be in your feeds in the next few days.
Sports Social Podcast Network.